Hi everybody, I'm DJ Foster, joined by Grand Valley State head football coach Matt Mitchell as the number 2 ranked Lakers prepare to take on number 22 Azusa Pacific in the 2014 season opener on Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Well, Mitch, last year at this time, you were going through a quarterback controversy. Heath Parling, Isaiah Grimes, not really sure who the starter was going to be. It ended up being Parling. Heath will start off this year as your starting quarterback again, and you've got to be the envy of most college coaches having 2 guys who have not only started for you, could pretty much start anywhere in the country in Heath Parling and Isaiah Grimes. You got a good situation there.
Yeah, it is very fortunate, and the reason it's ended up like this because we had a little bit of a tough time due to injuries, on Heath's behalf. But I'm glad we finally got a healthy Heath Parling. He's been very focused throughout the course of fall camp. I think he had a year off, and then when he came back, he got hurt, and really towards the end of the season, he wasn't practicing. We were just pretty much because of some of the nature of the injury, he was only playing in games. And so now it's probably, the first time he's had a full spring and a full fall camp to kind of get back to some of the fundamentals and basics. And he's looked very sharp so far throughout the course of camp.
You have some established guys, some playmakers on offense, Mike Rattay, Kirk Spencer, Chris Robinson, Jamie Potts. But after that, there's some inexperienced, some younger guys who are waiting in the wings. How does the rest of the offense shape up, especially kind of the offensive line?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's probably an area we've had to try to, work out the pieces of the puzzle. We have Eric LeBoon, who's a senior, start at tackle. Jim Walsh is an all-conference player guard, and Brandon Revenberg, arguably probably has had the best camp of anyone and he could play a lot of different spots, center, guard, or tackle. So we know we have 3. Peyton McCallum is a senior that's played some here and got a little dinged up in camp, but I think he'll be ready to go. And so it's just been a matter of trying to figure out who that 5th, 6th, 7th offensive line. And there's been some pretty heated battles at that position. Cameron Hobbs and Dan DeLuca are a couple redshirt freshmen that have been battling it out. Aaron Cox is a junior that's kind of been in that mix, and then Robert Alt too, who can play center for us, as a sophomore. So, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to get through a season. I'm not even sure against Azusa Pacific we're going to play just 5. I think we're looking at potentially, playing a couple guys and get some experience because as you move forward in the season, that experience is going to matter because you're just not, with the style of offense we play, how much you run the ball and what we do, it's difficult to just count on just 5 starting offensive linemen for an entire season.
Let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. You lost some guys on the 2nd and 3rd levels of your defense, but you bring a lot back along the defensive line, and there's some still position battles in your defensive backfield, essentially. Talk about how they look right now and how you're pleased with them so far.
Yeah, I think, linebacker, we lost some senior production, and so we were looking to replace that by moving Brad Horling into linebacker from a safety position. I think he brings he's basically a 2-year starter. So there'll be some experience now at that position. David Talley's had a really strong camp, and so those will probably be the first 2 guys that'll roll out there. But we have other linebackers that I think will play. Joe Moran, who's going to be a sophomore, Christian Harris, who's going to be a junior. Jeff Madison has had a very good camp as a redshirt freshman. I mean, those are probably 5 names to throw out at that interior linebacker position. Still probably a little bit up in the air regarding corner. The other one opposite Devontae Jones. I think there'll be 3 guys that could potentially play there. You've got Dante Carey, who's a sophomore who played some last year's redshirt freshman, then 2 redshirt freshmen that have had decent camps, just don't have much experience. That'd be Devin McKissick and Trey Walton. And we moved Trey over from a wide receiver to a corner, and that happened after spring practice. And he's done a good job for basically only having 2 weeks in camp to rep up at corner.
Right.
He's done a pretty good job. So inexperienced at the corner position, there's no doubt about it. And we'll kind of see as the game progresses and things goes how that'll play out.
The third facet of the game, obviously special teams. You bring back a lot of guys on that end. What do you expect from them so far?
Well, I mean, Chris Picano and Marco Idros are our 2 senior specialists, and they've done a good job. Joel Skipper, played a lot as a true freshman last year, so he's 2nd year. So the specialist positions were very set. Got a couple guys kind of looking at the long snapper thing, both Derek DeLuca, who did a little bit of it last year, and then we have a true freshman, Jay Fleming, who's had a good camp too. So we'll kind of sort that out. But the rest of the piece of the puzzle and special teams, I feel like can be a strength of this team because we have 7, 8 wideouts that I think could potentially play. Those are huge special teams guys. I've mentioned how we have 5, 6 linebackers, and those are big special teams guys. We've got 4 or 5 tight ends that can help us in special teams, and then we've got between the safeties and the corners and our nickel position, we've got some guys there. So I think the depth at the special teams is there, and you have some proven playmakers of those positions. Alt Voss made a lot of plays for us last year down the stretch of special teams. He's back out there. We know Hurst is good. Deontay Hurst is good at special teams. We've had guys that made plays. And you know, with some of the experience we have, you know, the true test of our experience might be in the special teams because of the specialists and the depth we have there. That might be our strongest of the 3 units heading into the opener.
You obviously faced Azusa Pacific in the season opener last year, raced out to a 31-0 lead here at Lovers Stadium, and finished with a 38-17 win. Looking back on that tape, what did you see kind of looking forward into this year? What do they present?
Well, I think we got off to a great start because we forced a couple turnovers. Had some good field position for offense, you know. But in the second half, we didn't execute very well defensively. We gave up some rushing yards to their tailback, who's a good player, and then we also, you know, weren't as effective offensively. And you know, they got it back to 31-17. We got back to a 2-score game. So I think that's probably more indicative of the two teams. They're going to, you know, they've got 2 seniors at your 2 best positions on offense. They got a senior quarterback and they got a senior tailback, and they've always had a lot of balance in their offense. So we have to prepare for. Everybody thinks, you know, the tailback's a good player and they're going to run the ball, but, you know, they'll balance it out. And so we have to be prepared for that. Defensively, it's kind of it's a difficult prep. The defense that they run is different than we typically would see within GLIAC play. And so you have to kind of go from what our kids have been going against in camp. You have to completely shift gears in these 4 days of preparation we have coming up, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on our players, especially our offensive line, to try to handle some of those adjustments. And so then you just throw in the whole factor as an opener. You know, I'm sure they've made some subtle changes or maybe wholesale changes that we don't know about offensively, defensively, from a schematic standpoint, and maybe some new players. And it really comes down to coaches and players. How quickly can they adjust throughout the course of the first half to what they're seeing on the other side of the ball, and I'm sure they feel the same too. You mentioned Terrell Watson, the tailback, who was the conference offensive player of the year. Most people might not know this, but after you guys defeated them in the opening week of the season, they went 10-1 the rest of the way. So to finish with a 10-2 record, obviously they're ranked in the top 25. What do you expect overall from them next week? Well, I think this is a big game for them. You know, given the nature of the conference that they play in, you know, this would be a really big game for them to try to get playoff consideration. You know, it's a league that it doesn't have the automatic access, and so they need a strength. You know, they need a large strength of schedule, and a win against Grand Valley would go a long ways towards their playoff hopes. And I'm sure that's what they understand the gravity of the game in terms of how it affects the rest of their season. And so there's a lot at stake. I mean, it's a playoff type game for both schools, just in terms of how things shake out the rest of the season. It's on national television. It's you know, a couple thousand miles from home. There's a lot of factors, you know, that we're going to have to manage. So it's a big challenge for our football team, and I'm glad that we have so much veteran leadership. You know, we've got 19 seniors that are going to be on that plane. A lot of those guys went to Colorado State Pueblo last year, went to Northwest Missouri State. We've got to lean on some of those experiences because it's going to be a big challenge for us. Opening kickoff for the 2014 season is this Thursday night at 9 p.m. as Grand Valley State takes on Azusa Pacific. You can listen all across the Grand Valley Sports Network. Check gbsulakers.com for action there. And again, as Coach Mitchell said, on CBS College Sports. Mitch, best of luck on Thursday. Thanks for joining us. All right, thanks. Thanks for watching this game preview right here on the Grand Valley Sports Network.